Welcome back to part 2 of our episode and more of our interview with Oberon Zell-Ravenheart.
Hi, this is Mark Mandrake here with Oberon Zell and Reverend Don Lewis, Witch School.
Hey, Mark.
And we're talking about all sorts of wonderful things, and we're talking about ritual right now. Oberon, if you could just continue.
Sure. Well, I was just saying that in CNW it has become the tradition, not one that we actually set out to create exactly, but that we really never do the same ritual twice under most circumstances, because there's so many creative people. We have a bardic tradition that there's people lined up waiting their turn to do the next event and the next special ritual, and we get wonderful stuff because we've been doing this for generations.
Yeah.
You know, on the land and stuff, the whole wheel of the year and such, and so people have grown up in this. People have been born and raised in these rituals that they've done every year through their entire lives, and they're now bringing their kids. You know, it's like we now have a third generation doing this stuff, which in many cases, Morning Glory and I started out, we set the pattern of creating the very first ones in each of the different wheel of the year cycles and different things, and then other people pick them up once we kind of set a basic pattern there, and it's really amazing and glorious. And now mostly we just get to show up, you know. But
there's something very cool about seeing what you've done being carried on by other people.
It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. When when Margaret was diagnosed with cancer, the first year that she was, she couldn't go anywhere for months and months. She was like bedridden for a good part of the time. It was really quite devastating. So we missed Beltane for the first time in decades. So
I would imagine that would be one of your favorites.
It is, absolutely. So it was 2 years before the next year when we were able to go back, and there was this gap. And we go back, and here's a whole new generation with little kids and babies and children, you know, who had been born in the meantime, you know, and stuff, all doing the traditional Beltane stuff that we do, which is quite elaborate. It's a whole weekend of rituals and events. And it was just, and they just gave us nice comfy chairs to just sit in and just enjoy the whole thing. It's a wonderful feeling to see the stuff that you have instigated being carried on by new generations, because then you know that you have left a legacy and it will continue. And at some point in our lives, I think, you know, we start thinking about what legacy are we going to leave behind? How are we going to be remembered? What will be left of us after we're gone? And we've dealt a lot of that in our work with the Eleusinian Mysteries, of course, because before we send somebody into the underworld, we say, well, supposing you don't come back, what legacy do you want to leave behind? How do you want to be remembered?
Speaking of legacy, both of you gentlemen are the heads of arguably the two greatest online schools of magic and paganism. What made both of you start this? These very dramatic endeavors and very powerful endeavors. What made you start these?
Well, you want to tell first?
Yeah, Don, let's talk about witchschool.com.
Which school started first?
Well, we started the school because we saw that people were very hungry for information and were not able to get it as easily as one would hope. In a lot of cases, they were finding their local communities inaccessible, if in fact they had a local community. It was very difficult for people to find teachers, very difficult for people to connect, especially because these were kind of the early years for the internet. Although that seems kind of odd, considering it hasn't been that long, but it's exploded amazingly quickly. Today it's much easier to connect than it once was, but what we saw here in Chicago, not to mention many other places, is that the number of people who wanted to learn was nowhere near the availability of the teachers. And that for us is why we did it, in terms of starting the school. That, and it was one more step in the various kinds of media that we've always worked in, because we've done radio shows and magazines and a variety of different things over the years before this. And in many ways we kind of took all of the different things that we had done and put them together in one project. And it went beautifully.
Oberon?
Well, for the Grey School, we were... I think the concept and the idea was a unique one. When I wrote the grimoire, with the aid of the Grey Council of all these people contributing to it, somewhere in the middle of the process, I wanted to basically be able to refer the readers to places where they could go online for further studies. And I thought, well, there's a lot of online schools and teaching places, and I figured, well, just send them there. But the grimoire was designed to be accessible to kids, you know, it wasn't just only for adults. It was meant to be for everybody, really. But, you know, as young as teenagers could really get something out of it. And so I went looking online for a very simple criteria. I wanted a school that was not a religious school, that would teach wizardry, and there wasn't any. Every single school that taught any kind of magic at all was all connected with a religion. Mostly witchcraft, almost all of them were. And witchcraft is and wizardry is not a religion. It's beyond that. It's like philosophy or science or something. You know, it's a discipline and a calling, but it's not a religion itself. So wizards have been and are immersed in every religion. Every religion, every culture has its tradition and history of wizards. Not just in mythology, but in actual reality. The history of wizardry is possibly the most well-documented occupation in the world, because the books, the textbooks, the astronomy books, the medicine books were all written by wizards, and they were passed down and copied and read by others. And there's been a continuum and succession of all this stuff that's been built on with mathematics and alchemy and chemistry and so on. So that was what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a school that would teach the wisdom of the ages, but not in a religious context. And simply since no one else was doing it, we figured we had to.
So we were talking about legacy.
Yeah.
Aside from your respective schools, what do you see as your legacy? Let's start with you, Oberon.
With me? Oh, well, gee, my goodness. I think, well, my most important legacy is all the people whose lives I've touched over the years. And it's one of those things you don't really think about. You know, you kind of just go through your life and you do what you do, and you meet people and you hang out and you have a good time. But in recent years, we've been hearing from lots of people over our whole lives who we've known, who are coming and saying, you know, you really made a difference in my life. You saved my life in some cases, or you changed my life, or you showed me something that opened me up to new stuff. And it's like an amazing thing, because again, it's not something you really think about. But to know that you have had an impact and that you've made a difference, that's a really important thing. Some of the specific things I figure is, well, I'm leaving behind as many books as I can manage to write while I'm still at it. And I've got 5 out so far and still at it. And many more I want to do. No shortage of ideas. I've got a substantial amount of artwork that I'm pretty pleased with that will be left behind. Altar figurines and jewelry that I see in people's homes and people wearing, so I know that that's there. Magazine I published for many years, which continues going on in its newest format as an e-zine. That's pretty, there you go, right? Yeah. Green Egg, right? And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of Green Egg. It was a wonderful endeavor, and I'm very pleased. And to have it being picked up by a new generation carrying it forward in a new medium couldn't be cooler. I'm happy about that. And Ham, our kids magazine. Look at that! You've even got our kids magazine. Ham. We have Green Eggs and Ham. Look at that.
There it is.
Wow, that's neat. So I've done that kind of stuff. Created a body of rituals and liturgy that people are using all over the place. We brought living unicorns back to the world. Created a church that is totally unique, that addresses issues and concepts and things that just nobody else has ever even imagined doing in this context, and it's thriving. And now the school, the Gray School of Wizardry, which I'm very, very proud of. It's everything I could possibly hope. In many ways, I think it's my most perfect endeavor, because we made a lot of mistakes in some of the early things we did, especially the church, because we were like out there all on our own. There was nothing else like it to use as a model. But by the time we got to the school, there's a concept and a framework for a school, that's there. I mean, you've got the whole Hogwartsy kind of an idea, and that's based on the traditional and stuff. So in putting this together, we're able to actually draw on traditions and legacy and stuff. And we've got wonderful teachers and wonderful students. And I'm very proud that the vision I've had for the school, for it not being just a pagan thing, or a Wiccan thing, is really working. Like our top present student, who's like, moments from graduation, is a Muslim, And he talks about that, and he writes these extensive things on wizardry traditions in Islam, and it's just wonderful. I'm just very proud. We've got Christian students and Jewish students, and of course pagan students and Muslim students, and people whose religion isn't even an issue one way or the other, if they even have one. Because people are getting it. They really get it. This is one of the places where I think I've been most successful in everybody being involved, really getting it. Because most of the time that's been a struggle, because my vision and idea of things has generally been so far out there beyond where most people are really thinking, that it's been a struggle to bring them up to where they really get it. But with this, everybody does, and I'm very, very happy about it. So, and I'm having a wonderful time, and I've got wonderful friends and wonderful work to do, and wonderful adventures, and I hardly know what is coming next, because hey, I didn't expect to get cancer and stuff like that, but now I'm looking like I'm 100 years old, and in over the next few years I'm going to get to grow young again and do a Benjamin thing. I'm going to enjoy that. I'm going to watch my hair grow back, and I mean, all of it is just such an amazing adventure. It's such a privilege and a joy to be allowed to be involved in this incarnation at this time among these wonderful people. I've mentioned several times this evening that one of the great things that came down at this Pantheacon only a month ago was to look around at all these folks at one of our big parties and realize that the most wonderful people I know in the entire world are my dearest friends. Yeah. And it's a great thing, and it's so true. It's so true. I can't imagine more wonderful people than the people who are my dearest friends. I mean, Don and I go back for many, many years. We've done all kinds of neat things in Vision, and now we're both involved in parallel enterprises with the school and the School of Wizardry, and we continue our collaborations and our sharings of ideas and our friendship and our affection for each other.
Absolutely.
And, we've had other collaborative enterprises before, of which the most famous is probably the Other People tract that I wrote.
People love that tract.
People do. In fact, I got to get another box of those.
I do too. People, of all the things I've done, I think I probably hear more from that one,
really?
even now, in terms of people who just love it and recognize me from that, which surprises me somewhat as I do more of the video. But I still get a lot of people who recognize the other people and want to see more of it.
Well, I often think that if there's one thing I may be remembered from down the centuries, it may be that little write-up, because it's the one thing everybody seems to know. I've written lots of stuff that I've considered more monumentally significant, but like Joni Mitchell apparently will only be remembered for Yellow Taxi, because all of her other songs never get played anymore. They only play Yellow Taxi,
Well, should you wish to do another track like that? Because I think it's the combination of the writing and the artwork.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Because
the art was perfect for it, just perfect. Although I did like the original draft, it was charming.
We had to tone it down a little bit.
Yes, you did, and it was good. It was a good choice. But I'm delighted to have gotten a copy of the original draft for my own collection.
I don't know if I have a copy of it, but that's okay.
All right.
So Don, going back, what do you view as your legacy?
Yeah, there you are. You're on.
Well, I've also created a very large body of work and plan to create a lot more. But I have to agree with where you started. The thing that means most is when you find out you've touched somebody's life in a way that is meaningful to them.
Yeah.
Especially when you find you've turned someone's life around.
Yes.
And we've had those people as well. And really, if anything makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, it's when you find you've helped somebody.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I've had people who've told me that the school saved their life, or that the tradition saved their life because it gave them something to hold on to when they needed it, or it taught them the things they needed to know about shaping their own reality. And really, that to me is certainly the legacy I most want to have.
Our legacy is the people whose lives we've touched.
Yeah.
Now your legacy is very much built also upon work that you're currently doing. Why don't you guys...
www.whichschoolstore.com
www.grayschool.com. It's pretty straightforward,
What immediate projects are you guys working on? I know, Oberon, you've talked about your biography.
Well, go ahead, Don.
Go ahead, Don.
Well, I'm still working on the video version of the lessons. Lesson 5 is about to come out. And I'm working on the Corellian Book of the Dead, in which I really want to explore our understanding of death, the spirit world, and how to interact with it, because that's very important in the tradition that I come from, which is very strongly spiritualistic in that respect. And I find that overall our community often doesn't have a lot to say about that, which surprised me because the tradition I come out of did.
They were paralleling again in ways. one of the things that Morning Glory and I are wanting to do that parallels that is a Eleusinian Mysteries Book of the Dead kind of a thing.
Oh,
That
cool.
would be, that would really take you like this, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or
Yeah.
the Egyptian is, through the passages through the underworld, and I look forward to illustrating with maps and diagrams
Oh, that
and
would be
pictures
cool.
of all the, things as you come to the rivers and you have to choose which fountain to drink from and all these things. It's
I'll look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. That's one of our projects. But there's lots of books on our schedule. I mean, in addition to the current autobiography, I'm working on Wizards of the World, which will be a whole vast who's who compendium of wizardry through the ages in chronological order, starting with Crooked Fox at 27,000 years ago, right on up to the contemporary community of people like yourself. And I think I already sent you stuff about the bio stuff that I'm collecting on that, didn't I?
Did you?
Didn't I?
Well, please send it again if you
Oh, I
did,
will,
because
I will.
sometimes things escape me.
I'm collecting bios on contemporary
Very cool.
people. And so that's one I haven't even really submitted the proposal for that one yet because I got so much else going on. But what I really hope to do very shortly is this the book that I've been waiting for 40 years to write, which really needs to come out in 2010 because that will be the 40th anniversary
Oh,
of the Revelation, which is the Gaia book, to be titled Gaia Genesis, Conception and Birth of the Living Earth. That would trace the Gaia vision from Hesiod's Theogony right through to the contemporary scientific Gaia thesis and into future visions of, planetarization of consciousness and cosmic stuff.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thanks for doing this. Blessings.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and you'll join us again next week for more of Living the Wiccan Life, when we'll be starting the summer right with video from last summer's St. Louis Pagan Picnic. Our guests will include then co-chair of the picnic, Charlene, Karen D., and acclaimed pagan artist Mickey Mueller. And don't forget to come out and see us at this year's St. Louis Pagan Picnic, the weekend of June 13th and 14th. Until next week, may you blessed be.